First of all, I haven't had the opportunity to do this, but I must commend Honorable Okujoto Ablakwa for following this issue up and bringing it to where it is today. It's been almost 2 years that I know that he's been trying to follow this up. So it just did not happen yesterday. And he just didn't get up and go for Honorable Brian Achampon. But it's been some kind of investigation, and obviously this is something that he is good at in terms of finding some of these things out and getting detailed information to support whatever claims that he made. The reason I'm saying this is that the genesis of this issue goes way back to 2022. It just did not happen yesterday. And it started as a result of SNIT coming up with a notice, basically an advert in the papers, this particular advert, that they're going to sell off their hotels. You know, basically these six hotels that were initially mentioned. And also a policy document that I chanced on, that they actually wanted to do more by selling all its unlisted assets. Unlisted assets. When we say unlisted assets, we mean assets owned by SNIT that are not listed in the capital market, in the stock exchange, of which these hotels are part of, because these hotels are not listed. I became very alarmed, obviously knowing the operations of SNIT. This came around February of 2022. This was when this advert. And in the advert, it says that people who are interested in this expression of interest should send their document, and it will actually be open, you know, like an open tender, on the 23rd of March, which is a month after the advert came out. As I said, I became very alarmed, knowing the workings of SNIT and the dangers of disposing of this asset. So I wrote to the Right Honorable Speaker to ask for permission to make an urgent statement on the SNIT matter. So this is the letter that I sent to the Right Honorable Speaker on this SNIT matter. At that time, there was no issue with Honorable Brian Achampon or anyone trying to. SNIT has just come out that they want to sell the hotel. And I just want to read a portion of this to you. My letter to Speaker, just ignore the first part. I said, I would like to sought your permission to make an urgent statement on the floor of Parliament on the deplorable state of our state pension managed by the Social Security and National Investment Trust, and their recent proposal to sell off most of its long-term unlisted assets, including their 6 big hotels across the country, office buildings, and their shareholdings in real estate companies. The intention is to reduce shares of these assets to only 0.4. So SNIT policy is to reduce all its unlisted assets, these infrastructures, to 0.4%, or 4%, sorry. And that was quite alarming. So I said, Mr. Speaker, these assets are the jewel in the crown of SNIT asset, and it will be catastrophic if SNIT is allowed to go ahead with the sale. It will put the future of pension payment of retirees at risk and possibly collapse the scheme, as there are not enough contributors, that is enough people working today to sustain the scheme. Mr. Speaker, time is of the essence, as SNIT has already advertised the expression of interest. Honorable Haruna Idrisu, then the minority leader, who I discussed this with before approaching the Speaker, I said, Honorable Haruna Idrisu, the minority leader, has approved the attached statement. That's the statement I wanted to make, and recommended to you. I humbly await your. Speaker didn't waste time on it. So on the first, and I will give you this document, I made a statement on the floor of Parliament. It says, statement by Honorable Kweku Rikitegan, Member of Parliament for Cape Coast South, on the state of pension in Ghana, the case of SNIT. And this was made on the 1st of March, 2022. So, Honorable Okujucho Ablakwa, I believe, was one of the contributors. After making a statement, people contributed. And after he and I had a discussion, and he actually took interest in this and decided to do some work on this. Then he and I had a few discussions where he had unearthed, you know, a lot of things. Now, SNIT cooled off. In my statement, I requested that Parliament brings in the Director General of SNIT and the management of SNIT to come and explain, first and foremost, why they want to sell the hotel, and secondly, why they want to get rid of all its long-term assets. Okay. Because SNIT is a long-term investor simply because it gets long-term money. Because it gets pension money that is invested on behalf of, you know, people who are working today to give them income when they retire. They have this long-term funds to be able to invest in this long-term asset. And they are one of the few institutions, financial institutions in this country, who can embark on that kind of, not even banks, because banks don't necessarily know when people will come for their money. But at least with pension, we know when people are going to retire, so they can have a proper planning. SNIT is the second largest financial institution in this country, only second to the Bank of Ghana. No, SNIT is a cash cow. And no institution in Ghana, not even the Bank of Ghana, has the kind of money SNIT has. Because Bank of Ghana only has money because it prints it, or it raises money on behalf of the government, for the government. It's not its money, it's only a custodian. But SNIT money, SNIT is also a custodian, but it holds that money long term for workers who are working today. If SNIT were to be any other company, SNIT would have collapsed. But because it's a pension and people are always contributing, working and contributing, SNIT is able to sort of be kept afloat by that. But technically, SNIT is near insolvent. What happened? There was a big problem, and I'm coming to come to this hotel, but this is the genesis and this is the story behind, and it's bigger than the hotels and bigger than Brian Champon. And if care is not taken, we will have a serious problem on our hand, bigger than the debt restructuring, bigger than the losses that Bank of Ghana has made. So, SNIT has this policy now. In the last 8 years, SNIT has a policy of selling all its long-term assets. We are talking about the hotels. We are talking about most of the skyrise buildings that you see in the commercial, area of Accra. The World Trade Center building, the Emporium building, many of MTN building, all those buildings are owned by SNIT. They are badly managed because they don't have any serious management company actually managing it. They have Brawl doing some work, and they have their own internal real estate department, which was set up basically to manage its own asset, buildings of directors and all that. And these are the companies managing SNIT hotels and properties. And the management of these hotels has become a Siberia for directors of SNIT that somebody obviously doesn't want to see at SNIT head office. So if you become surplus requirement, but they cannot actually fire you because you've been there for 20, 30 years, you are unproductive, they ship you to go and manage one of these hotels. So you find out that a lot of SNIT directors have been seconded over the years to manage SNIT properties across the country. I have worked with some of them. I've served on the board of SNIT. That's why I have all this information. I built a World Trade Center with SNIT, so I know, what is going on there. Now, the other problem that happened, that has put SNIT in the situation that SNIT is in now, before Brian Champon and others come in, is that during the last days of President Kufuor, we had a new Pensions Act. Originally, since the inception of SNIT, SNIT used to manage all the countries, the whole Ghana's formal sector pension, which then was 17.5% of the contributions made by employers and employees. Solely, as I said, SNIT was a cash cow, has lots of money and doesn't know what to do with it. It gives money into various investments. SNIT is actually the largest investor in Ghana's capital market. SNIT has shares in almost every stock in the stock exchange. At least about 22 of the 30 or so stocks that they have there. Now, when the reforms came, that changed the contribution to 18.5% instead of 17.5%. SNIT's management or SNIT, the contribution that comes to SNIT, reduced from 17.5% to 11%, because SNIT was supposed to collect 13.5%, but 2.5% was supposed to be given to the health NHI. So SNIT only ended up with only 11%, and then the new creation, which is the corporate trustees, ended up with a 5%, and then they had a third tier. So they had 3 tiers. The first tier is SNIT, the second tier is the corporate trustees, and the voluntary one, which is the third tier, the Provident Fund. Now, what that did to SNIT is that overnight, SNIT lost 37% of all pension contributions. And that has been the pattern from that time onwards, because the rest of the money goes to all this other creation. It was as a result of that that the NPRA was created. The National Pensions Regulatory Authority was created to regulate SNIT. But they have been weak since inception, because SNIT is a giant. And basically this NPRA itself was set up in conjunction with SNIT itself. So SNIT don't see them as their regulators, but SNIT thinks that it's better, it's bigger than them. So this is the genesis of SNIT's problem. So SNIT got to a situation where overnight, 37% of all the monies coming to them was not coming anymore. The structure with SNIT is that SNIT invests in long-term projects, obviously to fund future pensions. Now, it doesn't most of the time go and seek the investment, but it is people rather who come to the corridors of SNIT with various term sheets of projects that they intend to do, and come and convince SNIT to put money in those projects. SNIT owns hotels, as I said, commercial buildings. It owns energy business. The Ssnit plant in Tema, next to VRE, is owned by SNIT. That produces 100 megawatts of electricity. There are other Western malls, and all those are partially, and in some cases 100% owned by SNIT. So SNIT is littered with pretty much good project and bad project, because the bad project came to the corridors of SNIT with somebody behind it, gets SNIT to throw money in it, and then SNIT doesn't even know how those things are being managed. So comes these hotels. SNIT decided that they are not in the business of hotels. This is that. Listen to the logic. They are not in the business of running hotels. Therefore, it is better to divest these hotels and maybe get some income from it or get some money from it by selling them. Now, in the advert, if you go back and read it, the advert that came out, it said SNIT wasn't going to put any money in these hotels in terms of revamping them. So whoever comes to tender will have to have the money to invest in the hotel to get it. They have set up the parameters. They wanted the SNIT hotels to be world-class hotels. So whoever is coming should be prepared to have money to get SNIT to a world-class hotel. I don't know whether SNIT forgot or they decided to. SNIT earlier on had engaged a company called Legacy from South Africa to manage their Labadi. Labadi Beach belongs to them. And they didn't buy it. They were just management company who had put money in and get money from the money they're able to raise by running the hotel to pay themselves and to give back SNIT what is due SNIT. They signed another agreement for this company after they had done well with Labadi to take over all these hotels, 6 hotels, and do the same with them. In fact, to an extent that the one in Cape Coast, which is called Bajaya, Elmina, was going to be turned into a hotel. It was a hotel already, and a hospitality management school to produce the people who work in the hospitality industry. And they are to be accredited by the University of Cape Coast to be able to run that. Now, SNIT decided to abrogate that contract with the Legacy on Labadi and all the other ones that they signed, and set up a company called Golden Beach Hotel, their own company. Sent one of their Siberian people there to run it, and it was a disaster. Then they came to the conclusion, as I said, that they are not good at managing hotels, therefore they are not going to go into hotels. What SNIT forgot is that all the things they have invested in, they are actually not good at any of them. Because SNIT operates in it in terms of investment like what private equities do. They may not necessarily have an expertise in the field, but if it's a good investment, they go in there and probably bring in the expertise and participate in those companies. So that's basically what SNIT is doing. Most of the things that SNIT bought, it puts some of its people on the board and all that to see to what is going on there. But cronyism in the last 8 years is pretty much collapsing all the income that should be coming to SNIT that is not coming. So they decided to get rid of these hotels. Now, the mere fact that they said they were not going to put in money means that the hotels were going to be sold at knockdown prices. Because if you are selling a dilapidated building to me and you are not prepared to put any money in us restoring that building, then I can only take it from you at the knockdown price. And that brings in the gentleman, Brian Champion, a government official, Minister of State, Cabinet Minister, who does not see anything wrong with the word conflict of interest, doesn't probably understand it. And that a company associated to him, as far as he is concerned, that he is not participating in, so he claims, could go ahead and buy a quasi-state institution, which SNIT is, asset, and not see anything wrong with it. And that's a tragedy in this country. That if things like that should continue, we are going to have a serious problem. And I said the story is bigger than hotels, because similar things are going on in the commercial properties of SNIT. As I said, SNIT wants to sell off all these properties. So, who knows who is there in those other things that they are trying to sell? Who knows what has been sold? Who knows who are the players? The hotels are 6 or so of them, you know. But there are huge assets of SNIT that is also on sale. And people, cronies, are into this, coming up with all sorts of valuations in buying these things cheaply. It is wrong for the Minister of State, a cabinet minister, whether the company is 100 miles away from him, as the sole owner of the company, to even put in a bid. And what surprises me, that this guy and the NPP government and the people who are supporting him don't even see any issue with this. This is what we have degenerated into as a country. And if care is not taken, and this sale is allowed to go ahead, God help all of us in what will happen in the future. You will very soon hear of the commercial asset of SNIT also being sold off to people at knockdown prices, because SNIT again is not prepared to put in any money. And this is a serious problem, and it's something that I'm happy that Honorable Okudzeto Ablakwa took this up, did the kind of investigation. As I said, when I started this, there was nothing like Brana Champon. My interest was not even on, I didn't even think of government side of things, but my interest was not even in who is buying it. My interest is to stop the sale of SNIT immediately. Just the last bit of something I want to read to you here, which is in my statement. I'll make this statement available to you. I said in the speech, in the presentation I made in Parliament, I said, therefore, Mr. Speaker, SNIT should be discouraged from selling its long-term asset and be encouraged to invest funds to revamp its long-term asset. If you read this, you will get a lot of things that, you know, that I said on that day. And it's in the hands in Parliament. You need to be able to find it. So again, I must commend Honorable Okudzeto Ablakwa for what he has done. I must commend the people who went out there with us to demonstrate and to signal that this kind of things cannot go on. In fact, I was somebody who was not too much worried about, you know, maybe purchasing of government land and all those things. Because, look, these things started since independence, where retired civil servants are maybe they're able to buy a plot of state land. Remember, most of them were living in government bungalows, and you have to leave the bungalow for somebody else, your successor, to come and occupy it. Most of them did not have homes, or, you know, still wanted to live in Accra. Maybe they are not from Accra. So small parcels of land were given to these people to build their houses in the Jolus and the airport and that. It was on a small scale. What is happening today is government land being looted across the country for commercial projects spearheaded by politicians. Buying these lands cheaply and doing commercial activities with it to enrich themselves. Prime lands, not necessarily for their own even small property to live in. If you go to cantonment area, where we used to have single houses and all that all over the place, now when you go there, it's apartments. So the person who got the land did not get the land to build himself a house like it was done in the 60s. They got the land for commercial activities, bought the land at knockdown prices, and they're using them for these activities. And people in this country are standing up to defend. And the gentleman who is a minister of state can come on television or an interview and say that, put some kind of a challenge to Honorable Kujoto Ablakwa and add some salt to the injury, that if he's able to prove what he's saying, he's going to give his house in, what is it called? Transaco or hotel. Disrespecting all of us, belittling the intelligence of all of us as Ghanaians. And we are sitting down and watching. This sale must not go on. If it does, it's going to create a problem down the road. What is going to happen when even Brian Achampon or whoever buys this hotel? The question you ask yourself is, what is SNIT going to use that money for? SNIT is supposed to invest in long-term assets. These are, look, hotels, we know in this country, we know the infrastructure deficit and all that we have. We know that tourism infrastructure is lacking in this country. And what is tourism infrastructure? Hotels, restaurants, and on what have you. This is an area that the government is encouraging. Government is giving tax exemptions to cronies to invest in hotels. And SNIT is selling them at knockdown prices to somebody else. And a time will come when the government when SNIT gets the money, and let me tell you, this has been going on for a long time though, but it was escalated when the MPP government came to power. SNIT uses its money, first of all, as I said, to buy this unlisted asset, the real estate and all that they have, the commercial properties, the hotels and all that. It uses its money again in investing in the capital market, and I mean stocks. As I said, it's the biggest investor in the Ghana Stock Exchange. So SNIT is helping the development of our capital market. SNIT is also one of the biggest bondholders, government bondholders in this country. Because SNIT uses its money, the cash that is ours, in buying government bond. Now let me tell you the problem there in the last 8 years with government bond. When the money that SNIT invests is only in the books of SNIT, but that money in the last 8 years has never come back. Because when that bond matures, government and SNIT roll that bond over. They don't pay. And in some cases, even the coupons, the interest that were to be paid, are not paid. Therefore, the interest and the principal are both put together and rolled over. And they've been rolling it over. So in SNIT books, they have money. But make a call on SNIT for that money to pay pensioners, and that money cannot come because the government itself hasn't got it. That money has also suffered haircuts and all sorts of cuts. So, to allow SNIT to be able to sell these hotels, what the government wants to do is to encourage SNIT to sell the hotels and its asset. So now that it is being shut out of the capital market, the external debt market, and even in the local market, domestic market itself is become choked with treasury bills. The government wants to take SNIT money from these assets and use it in the wasteful, frivolous manner that is done with our money in the last 8 years. So a time will come that if SNIT goes ahead with any of these sales, SNIT will have no asset in terms of infrastructure or physical asset. SNIT will only have cash in the stock exchange. Stock exchange can collapse and SNIT will lose all pensions money. Government is not unable to pay bonds, giving haircut. Therefore, the cash sitting with government can also have serious problems. SNIT is limited in where it invests its money. So are the trustees and all that. Because it is pension money, they are supposed to invest it in a close to risk-free assets so that they don't go into these hedge funds and other things and waste people's money. The government, who is supposed to be the most risk-free, itself has become a problematic customer to have. And this is the situation that we are in. The issue is bigger than hotels. The issue is bigger than Brian Achampon. It is the whole institution called SNIT and this government, with the policies that they have fashioned together to loot this country and deprive pensioners of future pension. In the ILO report that is given to SNIT, that's an actuarial report that is given to SNIT, and I've been following this since 2011, consistently says that SNIT within a few years will be unable to continue the scheme to be able to pay people. Because less people, high unemployment means that less people are going into the workforce. Those who have retired today, it is not the money that they contributed that is paying their pension. That money paid somebody else's. It is the money being contributed today, together with investment income, that is paying the pension of people who are living on retirement today. And only a small percentage of people who are on retirement are actually receiving pension. So majority of the people have to take some job somewhere in the private sector to be able to earn a living, or they are relying on families and all that. Because we know that the leap and all those things doesn't reach anywhere. And if care is not taken. So, look, this issue is not about Brian Achampon. Yes, he's the one who is gone into this thing, which he shouldn't have. I can't, this is criminal. It should never be allowed. And I can't understand why people can't even see it. And people are actually sitting down and making arguments about this, the pros and cons. Brian Achampon is a businessman. If he's a businessman, he should leave government, go and do his business. After all, that's what President Nana Akufo-Addo said. If you want to make money, stay in the private sector and make your money. You won't make it in my government. He cannot be in government, use his influence to buy SNIT, a quasi-state institution's asset, at a knockdown prices and make a commercial enterprise out of it and call himself a successful businessman at the expense of pensioners and those of us who are still working today. Probably those who are on pension in the next, the average I think is about 20, 30 years you will be gone. So maybe those people will get pension. But Senate people like you, your contribution will end up in SNIT hotels that will end up in some private hand. So let's comment Honorable Okudzeto Ablakwa. Look, a lot of things will be thrown at him. But let's look at the substance of the matter. It's not going for, when I started, I wasn't going for, I didn't even know Brian Achampon. He wasn't even in the game. The notices came out in February. I wrote to the speaker on the 25th of February. I made a statement on the 1st of March. That's the statement here, I'll give you a copy. And Honorable Okudzeto Ablakwa took this thing and he took a different life on its own. Before he even informed me, Ablakwa, about this Brian and all that, because when I was doing this, I was looking at stopping SNIT because I was trying to beat the 23rd deadline in their advert of opening the bid, and I was calling on Parliament to call in the Director General, the management, the minister responsible, both finance and employment, to come and answer questions why SNIT is taking this diabolic policy direction of selling assets they owe 100% all the way to 4%. How will SNIT be able to survive? What will SNIT contributions that it takes will be invested in? Government bonds to create the kind of problems that we have created. So that's the genesis of this story. It's bigger than the hotels, bigger than Brian Champon. And real rot is going on in SNIT, and we need to halt it, and halt it now. Otherwise, there will not be pension for anybody.